Hi! Today a different dissected without look, because I'm doing this on the fly. Well, as much as something that takes 3 days to complete and is a collection of thoughts that I've been having for years can be called on the fly. But yeah, so cheap still picture visual it is. Recently I got into a discussion with some people about fourth wall humor and my usual dismissal and irritation at it. Generally, when talking about stuff, my language toward fourth wall humor is very negative, and the weird thing is there's actually a lot of fourth wall humor I do like. Things like the Naked Gun movies, or Emperor's New Groove, or Dr. Slump, or heck, my own animations show a lot of fourth wall humor, and I often like them. Which got me to think. It's not that black and white, so I wanted to explore fourth wall humor in this video. Now, problem with this video is that I don't want it to be a judgmental video, so not really exploring what makes a good fourth wall joke and a bad fourth wall joke, because we're dealing with art, with psychology, with humor, things that are very relative and different for each person. However, my exploration is still mostly fueled by my own psychological instinctual response to jokes, so whether I like it or not, there will still be a layer of judgment powering my thoughts, which is unfortunate. So what I'm trying to say is, I hope you can take my arguments and observations about why I like or hate types of jokes or approaches outside of their judgment context, because the funny thing about observations and arguments is that they can work both ways. The exact same reason why I hate something could be the very reason why someone else loves it. This is why I always prefer observations and exploration analysis over truth, because, truth immediately knocks things down into a stationary right and wrong category with no room for debate or differing opinions. And well, that's a very good approach when it comes to math, science, and engineering, where you either get things right or get them to explode horribly. But when dealing with story, art, psychology, that's a wonky path to walk on. So, fourth wall humor. When talking about fiction, let's say there's 3 layers. Us, the audience in the real world. The media, both the crew and brains making the product and the piece of media itself, whether it's a TV, a book, a narrator, whatever. And then there's the fictional universe, the artificial simulation of a reality, not necessarily a direct copy of ours, where the story takes place. Now usually, when consuming a story, you stay inside the artificial, the fictional universe. You get excited, sad, laugh, whatever, because of things happening there. And a level of believability is necessary to trigger the emotions. Something is funny because it's this character, with all the things he or she had gone through in this situation, dealing with this person in this way, that makes it tick. All that context coming together, culminating in something exciting, something sad, something funny. At least that's how my sense of humor works. I need to have context. That's because I usually prefer to jump out of my own pathetic body and useless life and observe other people's of more exciting people. However, there's also people who consume media more by reflecting things back at themselves. So for example, face expressions or memes. If you find those things very funny, they don't always have a narrative context to them. Sometimes it's just a funny visual or reminder of your own experience and life. So now it's you and your brain that's filling the context. I suppose people who have a huge preference for humor that's more on itself would gravitate toward fourth wall humor more than I do, because it makes a joke more about you enjoying the media more so than about the actual character universe there in itself. So this video will probably relate very little to people with that kind of approach. But moving on. So, when you knock the audience out of the fictional world, when you stop looking at characters, as friends, enemies, people, or whatever to invest in, but look at them more directly from the media or real world perspective, it's harder for me to get emotional, to be invested. They're just a product, a shape, a mascot, an artificial tool steered by people to get a point across. And sure, technically that's what story characters are, but that's what good stories trying to hide. Now the wonderful thing about our brains is that it's not that black and white. It's not that you're fully immersed or fully detached. There's a nice big gray area in between. For example, let's say you're talking to a family member or friend on Skype, but internet is bad and this Skype call is glitchy, so the person looks a little distorted for a few seconds and the audio becomes garbled. Stuff that constantly happens in my videos. Yet it's not like you suddenly think you're actually a family member just disfigured and turned into a demon for a split second. You have an awareness of the media, so while part of your brain is fully immersed in the conversation you have with this person, another part of your brain is still aware you're dealing with a computer program and can operate the system and understand context when video compression issues start happening. Same with the fictional universe. Usually our brains are capable of taking a few punches when it comes to plot holes, technical problems, and yes, fourth wall humor inside of a piece of media without being immediately knocked out of the experience. We usually have a gray area where our brains can tolerate distortions of reality, or the fake reality of the fake universe, while still buying the premise. And good thing too, because you need to be aware of the real world while consuming fictional story. Reading a book, you still need to turn the page. Watching a movie, you still need to shove popcorn in your mouth. Playing a video game, and you still need to run screaming out of the house because you left the stove on and your house is being burned to the ground. Or, preferably, you realize the stove was on before that point. So far as I'm concerned, a fourth wall joke walks a fine line where it makes the two parts of your brain, the one that's immersed in the fictional universe and the one that stays in the real world, share a moment together, but it has to stay in that grey area that it doesn't break full immersion. And to me, it's about upholding the general rhythm, direction and energy of the story and characters that upholds this grey area. So if my Skype call gets garbled for a moment, no problem. Little glitch, happens, it's a computer. But if the person I'm chatting to doesn't just contort and get a demonic voice, but also start saying weird things out of character,
I am Satan, kill the non-believers,
then it's a different story and I'm a little bit more concerned that there's something seriously wrong. It's no longer just a technical thing. The very direction of the conversation and personality of the person I'm talking to has been distorted, and not even the most glitching programs do that, usually. Same story, boom mic is on screen, set falls apart, character looks at the camera, yeah, technical glitch, whatever. But when the fourth wall jokes start disrupting the characters in the story themselves and go against their nature, that's when there's trouble. Okay, so far as I'm concerned, there's 5 types of fourth wall jokes. Actually, there's only 4. The 5th one is a weird category that I'll save up for later. Okay, so fourth wall types, according to me. 1. When a joke only exists between the media and the audience but doesn't involve the actual fictional universe at all. For example, Beavis and Butthead love this trope. In one episode, their teacher is giving a lecture about the miracle of animation. It goes on about how animation makes things come to life, like a miracle, and animators have to work endless hours to pull it off. All while the actual cartoon we're watching is just a still picture of Beavis and Butthead just sitting there, not even blinking their eyes. So it's a hidden joke between the animators and the audience, but doesn't really exist in the fictional universe itself. Of course, the fictional universe of Beavis and Butthead goes, it's just a teacher explaining something while Beavis and Butthead are paying attention, so nothing weird. Well, okay, Beavis and Butthead paying attention is a little unusual, I guess, but, you know, not fourth wall breakingly weird. So yeah, fourth wall jokes that are just hidden messages between the media and the audience. Snarky narrators, clever camera cuts, that kind of stuff. Second type, it's when the main characters share their inner thoughts with an invisible audience. Typical cartoon moment, something crazy happens and the characters stare straight at the camera with a "did that just freaking happen?" face expression. Or Sonic confiding to his audience that he's not going to call the wisps by their official names, but just gonna call them aliens. It's kind of breaking the wall, but their reactions and thoughts are natural. I can't imagine it's something this character would do, would think. It's just them staring at the camera that's weird. Third, visual humor that's otherwise not acknowledged. Naked Gun movies love this. Character walking past the set to enter a new room instead of through the door. Or Spaceballs when they accidentally kill a movie crew member during a sword fight. Or heck, my own thing where Knuckles hits the guard on the head with a loading screen. It's characters weirdly interacting with fourth wall elements, but otherwise mostly acting like it's a normal part of their environment and not really questioning it. In Police Squad, episodes end with a freeze frame, except not all elements freeze, so a criminal the officers arrested can still move during the freeze frame and tries to escape. But he never questions the freeze frame itself, he just immediately takes advantage of it. At most, characters may stare confused at fourth wall moments for a moment, but then shrug it off. It's kind of like the Toy Story movies, where toys stop moving when humans are around. This invisible law that they abide to, that's just their culture, that's just how their universe operates somehow. And then fourth category, the outright and complete destruction of the fourth wall, when characters literally referring themselves and their environment as actors and sets and being in a movie, and thus basically breaking the fourth wall and merging with the media itself, where they talk like they're their own crew members and product. Your typical, I'm gonna call my agent, or this isn't in the script jokes. These are the 4 main types of fourth wall humor I usually see. And as for me, I have jokes I really love in the first 3 categories, but I absolutely hate the 4th category. And I have to admit I have used jokes from the 4th category in my own work, but I'll get to that later. So one by one, the categories. When a joke only happens between the media and the audience, then there's no problem at all. It doesn't interfere with the characters and their universe, so I'm fine with it. Second category, characters confining in an invisible camera. Usually I don't mind these jokes, or heck, they don't even register in my brain as fourth wall jokes, because most of the time the things that characters say feel natural for them to be thinking it. So the only weird part of them is staring straight at the camera, and I guess my brain just filters that out, or just takes that as a visual flair to signal we're really just hearing the character's inner thoughts. Like the cartoon characters getting the line thrown on top of him and then staring you in the face. You know, it feels natural, that sensation. Don't we all have that? That when something weird happens, that you almost want an invisible audience to see it, you want to stare the universe, the cosmos itself, in the face and ask it, seriously, did you just break every law of physics just to fuck with me there? Seriously? That feeling that you just want to share a thought with the entire world, even when there's none. I don't know, but instinctively it feels like natural behavior, natural thought to occur when something crazy happens. So therefore it works for me. It's not like sharing his thoughts or grading his actions when a level is over. It doesn't necessarily register in my head as a fourth-wall moment, but more as if we get a visualization of some natural thought that occurs in their heads. Like he's not literally standing there in the middle of the street staring at a giant floating A, but just walking after the excitement and kind of thinking, that was pretty cool. I'd give myself a solid B for that. And it still kind of works. Doesn't interrupt the universe to break immersion. If I have a problem with these jokes, is that when they're overdoing the emphasis on the joke. Like having characters shove their face in the camera and wink. It's not the fourth-wall stuff that annoys me, just the aggressive desperation to jam the joke down your throat. Third category, visual stuff. Again, it's weird that my brain is never bothered by this. In fact, it usually loves it. But the thing is, especially when you're already watching something that's weird, like a cartoon, or you just take some things as part of their universe. Characters surviving or having supreme physical powers, talking animals, blah blah blah. It's an alien world we're looking at, so I suppose those are just parts of how their reality works. You have giant flying dogs here, whatever. So usually in cartoons you're encouraged to kind of go with the flow unless the characters themselves question it. And that's the key. Characters accepting it as part of their universe. I almost compare it with going to a new club or a weird social cult with a few friends and you have no idea what's going on and what weird costumes everyone's wearing and what weird things they do. But as long as your friends shrug and go along with it, you just assume it's normal. The guy lighting himself on fire? That's just part of the show, no worries. He's trained professional. Alrighty then, that's just how this social event goes. It's only when your friends themselves start getting worried and start questioning things, then you get more concerned. Like, whoa, is this guy supposed to suddenly catch fire? Are we gonna catch fire next? Uh-oh. So cartoons casually utilizing fourth-wall elements, it just becomes part of the logic of the universe, provided there's a nonchalance in how it's used. Again, the key to my brain is characters calling attention to it, because as soon as they call attention to it, then it becomes something to be concerned about, then it becomes a riddle, a plot point. I don't mind Sonic confining his thoughts to us when I know perfectly fine where those thoughts come from and why he's thinking it. It's when they start saying things that don't flow naturally from the context and character that it irritates me. Eggman, they don't call me Robotnik anymore. It's not a natural thought. It introduces a lot of concepts that don't work in context. Who's not calling you that? And why do you care what other people call you? Why are you implying it's wrong to do so? There's so many elements and implications that don't flow naturally, and the joke only works in the real-world context, that in the real world his name has been changed for a Japanese audience. It's kind of interesting how my brain reacts to that, because as soon as new elements are introduced, or it seems to put a new twist on a character, my brain doesn't treat it as a joke anymore, but treats it like a mystery, and now it wants an answer. Well, you brought it up. Now I want to know. And because it's a mystery, my brain remains stuck on it until it realizes it's never going to get an answer to that mystery other than, lol, it's supposed to be funny, and then you lost me. The only time I can tolerate outright full fourth-wall breaking humor from the fourth category is when there's a context to it. So a Deadpool or the Animaniacs, who are acknowledged to have super meta powers within their own universe and that they're acting out of as fictional characters as part of the identity of the character in the show itself. Or when the story you watch is literally being performed, like the Muppet Show being an actual actors performing within the context of the show. Or the Emperor's New Groove movie that's largely taking place in Kuzco's own mind as his ego and conscience are bickering over the truth. When there's an in-universe context to the fourth-wall breaks, I'm at peace with it. Problem is that often the writers get so immured to the do everything you want freedom of fourth-wall humor is that they lose sight of the limits and go meta beyond the borders. So the Animaniac breaking the fourth wall and acting as literal host of a show is okay, but their foils, the folks at the movie studio, shouldn't have those meta abilities. Because if they had, then they should have no special reactions to the Animaniacs being so omnipresent. I like it when the Muppets are meta when performing their stage shows, but I hate it when they refer to the audience in scripts when the story takes place outside of the theater context. Although strangely, Emperor's New Groove does get away with me with still breaking the fourth wall even after the point where the movie's a flashback in Kuzco's own head. That's one weird exception. I don't know why my brain's okay with it. Although to that movie's credit, the fourth wall humor is reduced in the last section of the movie with no more narrator or movie pauses. But there's still some fourth wall breaking bits. I suppose my brain has peace with it because I'm still watching the entire movie as if it's told within Kuzco's own brain. Only difference between the flashback section and the finale is that the first section is his brain reminiscing over the past, and the last part of the movie is his brain just catching up with new events or something. I don't know. It's weird to understand your own brain sometimes. But those rules only apply to whenever I have peace with a fourth wall joke or not necessarily if I find them funny. My personal taste and funniness of a fourth wall joke is that it should either be super subtle, like a hidden Easter egg hunt, like weird background events in Naked Gun movies, or the hidden jokes told by camera movement or animation, subtle fourth wall humor. Or go completely nuts with it, because I do find the relation between fictional world and reality fascinating. It is fun to explore how your brain deals with symbolism and narratives. So I'm not against the idea of fourth wall humor, it's just that most of the time it's so weak, so tame. It doesn't dive deep enough for my tastes. Like, as soon as you open the floodgates, I want to go all in. Okay, so characters are aware that they're a fictional character in a fictional universe. Now, don't go back and pretend that we're still watching a normal story again. Go nuts! Go full The Truman Show and have characters explore the limits of their fictional universe. Try to escape, fuck around, go nuts! That's the one problem I have with fourth wall humor. It's so lazy. You know, the characters mention a script to show awareness of them being trapped in a fake universe, and then they go straight right back to the regular narrative. No, you open the door to this new dimension, then let's go there. Go completely Looney Tunes, you know? In my own Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal parody, I kinda played with that frustration, where the characters in the parody start as actual characters, but then as the cartoon goes on, it becomes more and more artificial. Camera shots become more static, characters move less, the edits between shots are increasingly unstable with weird frames and sounds coming between the cuts. An actor suddenly breaks character and goes on an angry rant, just to be magically back into character after an awkward camera shot. Then another character walks in with a completely different energy, like he came in from a completely different movie. It's like their reality is slowly bursting and collapsing and falling apart. Well, that parody never really went completely nuts, it stops before the full collapse. But it does play with this relation I have with awkward fourth wall humor. It's like the glue that holds the fictional universe together is starting to fade away. So that seems to be my taste in jokes. Either be super subtle, or if you broke the immersion anyway, then go completely nuts with it and turn it to a complete meta experience. Anything in the middle is usually just meh. You broke the immersion too much that I don't care about the proceedings anymore, and the jokes themselves are too tame to sustain themselves as a fascinating brain experiment. So I'm left in the middle, between rock and a hard place. Another reason why I make subconsciously hate the fourth wall jokes that go against the nature of the fictional universe is that it requires you to completely consume media from your own perspective, so it comes across as narcissistic to me. It's like it becomes more a celebration of you and how wonderful and crazy you are for following media, more so than that the focus is on the fictional universe and the jokes itself. Jokes where the punchline is basically a fictional character agrees with you or shares your tastes, almost as if the entire point of the comedy is just that your characters confirm and validate your opinions, and that should give you an emotional height more so than there's actual jokes being told. Not always the case, but part of that is what makes me subconsciously be irritated by the idea of fourth wall jokes. And as for my own usage of the fourth category of fourth wall jokes in my cartoons, I used these types of jokes where our characters refer themselves as characters within the cartoon myself a lot. I don't like them now, and I don't think I even liked them when I made them. It's usually me giving up, a sense of desperation, like I desperately want to make a joke about some kind of point I want to make, but I have no idea how to work it into the narrative, so instead characters literally say the point of the joke out loud to the audience. It's lazy, it's desperate, it barely even qualifies as a joke. It's something I'm never proud of. Now, I don't want to imply that that's the case with every joke that other people make in that style. It's just what happens to me, and because of that, it creates an instinctual connection between me and that joke type. But on a subconscious, instinctual level, I might extra hate those jokes because they remind me of my own weaknesses in writing to a degree. But that's one part of it, that's not the full story. Those were the intentional fourth wall jokes. Now we get to the fifth category and most complicated and nitpicky, and therefore the most interesting one of the categories, the one that technically doesn't break the fourth wall, and doesn't necessarily have to be a joke, but still, out of instinct, my knee-jerk reaction is to call it fourth wall breakingly, the very reason why I made this video. Okay, let's start with a comedy example so we get half of the equation right at least. For example, the Howard the Duck movie. In that movie, there's two universes, our real Earth human universe and a parallel duck universe. Their universe is an exact copy of ours with the exact same pop culture, only difference is that evolution, or God if you prefer, just happened to favor ducks instead of humans, I suppose. So there's a poster of Indiana Drake from the creators of Beaks and Fowl Wars, breeders of the last stork. Okay, but If this is what the Duck universe portrays the Indiana Jones poster as, shouldn't the human equivalent have human-related puns in place of the bird puns? So, Indiana Human, Parents of the Lost Ape, from the creators of Mouth and Human Wars. Or other example, you have characters like Sans from Undertale or Ares from Lego Legends of Chima. They're wacky and love making jokes, and most of their jokes are constantly puns about their own species, or, well, state of being, whatever you want to call it. So Sans is constantly, you got a bone to pick with me? And Ares is, I'm gonna wing it! Don't put your eggs in the same basket! Skeleton and bird puns, because they are a skeleton and a bird, get it? So my brain can help but wonder that if they were humans instead of skeleton and bird, how their jokes would translate. Would they constantly be making human puns? I prefer the humane approach. My favorite superhero is the Flash. Get it? Because we're made of Flash? Eh? Get it? It's a small step for mankind. Get it? Because I'm a man? Sounds awkward, because we never make puns about what we are. Even the most cringy joke tellers don't. The logic of the joke is that the pun is about an animality. So if I had a car crash and lost my arm, and someone makes an innocent remark like, ooh, that cost me an arm and leg, it's like, oops, my innocent phrase accidentally triggers unpleasant memories of your accident. So I might get an emotional reaction, anger, sadness, or laughter, depending on how I deal with trauma. So that's where the joke usually works. But in the case of these characters, that would imply they consider their own existence to be an animality. So if it's like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles making a joke like that, it kind of makes sense. They're supposed to be a weird accident and they're aware of that. But why would a bird whose parents were birds, great parents were birds, entire city is birds, entire history and legacy is made out of endless generations of birds, why would she have this response to bird puns? Again, it's like we're constantly getting a reaction every time we see the word human or skin or flesh somewhere in a weird context. We don't, because being a human is normal to us. It's the default position. So, what it comes down to is that their jokes, even though technically not breaking the fourth wall, only really works for us, the human audience in the real world. Sans and Ares are an animality to us, but those jokes shouldn't have an effect on the characters themselves. Point is, that's my fifth category. When a character's reaction only works from our perspective, usually not a deliberate fourth wall joke, but more as a consequence of writing closer to the perspective of the audience rather than the characters. Doesn't necessarily have to be a problem. I don't really have a problem with Sans or Ares as characters because even though their jokes shouldn't make sense to them, but the energy of the characters are still upheld. They're wacky jokesters, so they make wacky jokes. Okay, alright, fine. I just find it amusing from a psychological perspective to dissect their mindset, but it doesn't interfere with the energy, the flow of their stories, their characters. So, they're fine. But now an example that does cause a problem. And I get to the point why I made this video to begin with, because modern Sonic writing I often called to be fourth wall breakingly, on an instinctual level. Subconsciously, I always feel that it's extremely written from the perspective of the audience, not the characters. It's subtle, it's nitpicky, it's something personal that not everyone will agree with, so I'm not making the statement as any kind of truth, just me exploring why I'm thinking things. Okay, so for example, here's a clip from a pawn theft story that, under normal circumstances in any formal context, I would never call a fourth wall breaking moment, but it would still trigger a subconscious reaction from me in that regard.
Drop the critters, Eggman!
If you insist.
Whoa, that's harsh!
I know, it's not the joke, it's Still's reaction to the whole thing. Whoa, that's harsh. That harsh, it's such a weird word. For some reason, it immediately knocks me out of the scene. The whole energy, the flow of the scene is frantic, energetic, exciting. They're chasing, saving the animals, yelling at each other. Let them go! So I'm expecting Tails' response to come from that energy. So he'd be either focused on the animals, no, the animals, get them! Or anger at Sonic for setting up Eggman for such an obvious opportunity, maybe. But no, instead he seems to be judging the scene, giving a judgment. Hey, what happens is harsh. And even that would work if you said it more bombastically. Eggman, have you gone crazy? Are you insane? You're killing those animals! Not like that panic. But no, it's harsh. It's such a calm, such an inactive word. More something you say sitting in a comfy chair while smoking a pipe. Say, Eggman, that was quite harsh of you old chap. Not very gentlemanly. More so than saying in a moment of intensity. Something about that word catches my brain off guard. And then I got it. It's like if the scene actually played out like this.
Drop the critters, Eggman!
If you insist.
Whoa, that's harsh. You know, for kids. I thought I was watching this Happy Kids cartoon with talking animals and now that just happened. Harsh, man. The word, the phrase, it's like Till suddenly talked like an internet reviewer commentating on his own scene from a third-person perspective, more so than having a natural reaction from inside the scene. A lot of people will probably disagree, it's very specific and personal here, because I constantly have this instinctual feeling that the characters behave more like mouthpieces for the audience, floating above their story more so than really inside. And of course, with practically every Sonic media these days being extremely comedy, meta and nostalgia focused anyway, that only adds to that suspicion. Whatever, right or wrong, the point is, this is why you might catch me dismissing something for being too fourth-wall breaking for me, even when there's technically no fourth-wall breaking going on. There might be something about the writing, the acting, the presentation that makes it feel the creators entirely approach the sequence from an audience perspective instead of the characters, and as a result, it starts feeling unnatural to me. Call it the uncanny valley for writing. So, that ends my brain farts on fourth-wall humor. Always fascinating to play tricks on the brain. But yeah, unless you go completely nuts and have the characters fully jumping in and out of reality and manipulating their own universe like a psychopathic god, I prefer fourth-wall humor to stay out of the way of the natural flow of the narration and either be a fun little Easter egg and hunt in the background, or at the very least be restrained and contained within a narrative context. Because all that casual unrestrained fourth-wall humor does is just remind me that I'm staring at blobs of ink on paper or moving pixels on a TV, and that everything is fake, artificial dribble, and it does nothing but create an existential crisis where everything is pointless and meaningless and the cosmos is too large to care about the minor scrabbles of our personal lives, so we might as well kill ourselves because death is the only certainty in the universe. You know, not the kind of thoughts you want to have when you're relaxing with a fun comedy. Well, that was me. What are you folks' favorite or most hated fourth-wall jokes? Let me know in the comments so I can remind you that your personal tastes and concerns are like meaningless specks of dust in the eternal cosmos of nothingness. Bye bye.